Welcome to Stormwatch by Grey Noise Intelligence. Each week, we drop the latest info on what's happening at Grey Noise and Census, take a look at a roundup of important and timely cybersecurity topics, toss out some expert opinions, and drop the occasional conspiracy theory. Later on in today's episode, we have the infamous Tod Beardsley here to talk about his epic work on CISA's equally epic Kev catalog. If you're live, toss out questions for Tod and be nice, because Tod's an awesome human. So before Tod is able to join us today, we're going to dig into some issues about software quality, liability, and global fragility in light of some minor things that happened last week. We're also going to drop some good news on everybody. Well, we're going to try anyway, as numerous individuals and groups have been the recipients of some welcome enforcement actions, and then we'll also touch a bit on U.S. election security, and obviously we will take a look at the latest Grey Noise tag and CISA Kev drops. But hey, team, but before we get into the usual segment where I'm asking you like a question and you're all like sharing personal things about yourself, I need to start with a personal thing for me too. It's really been a hard decision, but I do have to let everyone know that I am absolutely not running for office. I am not going to be a candidate for president. I don't need that in my life. I am focused on representing the viewers and listeners of Stormwatch. However, I have about 1 million Dark Harbor Master buttons I need to get off my hands. So if anybody wants a few, they're really cheap discounts. So just hit me up. Y'all know where to find me. Okay. And with that,
I don't even know what to say to that.
I hope you'd be happy for me that I'm caring more about you guys than running for office.
I bet your family was looking forward to getting you out of the house on the trail for a bit, though.
Ouch. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to a dark place for something that's going to be good. Hey, So I thank you all for joining today. I hope everyone's excited for Tod to be on today.
I am.
Okay, that's cool.
Yes.
I am going to start with Himija again. Himija, thank you for being here today, making time out of your busy work at Census, because I know that you and your coworker do a lot of great work there. What is the most unexpected thing that has brought you joy recently? You were trying to have a positive episode today. We're doing our best, Emily, to have a positive episode today.
I'm understanding that assignment. So yesterday I had to go to the car dealership, which is one of my least favorite tasks, for many reasons. But I had the most wonderful time because the people there were so nice to me and gave me a coloring book while I waited. It was literally the dream. I went in there like shields up. I was like, I'm gonna say all the words that my dad taught me how to say. I didn't need any of them. They gave me a coloring book. They told me everything I need to know. It was great.
Was it a car coloring book or like what was the coloring book?
It was floral. They didn't really commit to the bit, but you know what?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
That's so
Maybe
cool.
it was because they assumed I was a student because I had my backpack with me, but either way.
As long as it's not coming from an
time.
insulting view, like they're like, here, we'll just keep this person busy.
Yeah. Still though, that is a great story. I love that story.
Yeah, that's cool.
Brought me a lot of joy.
We need more coloring books in waiting rooms, like highlights. Everyone, do y'all remember highlights?
Aww.
Oh yeah.
Still thing.
When I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, when I lived, I was born in Joe's hometown, Scranton, and Highlights is made like really close to there. So I actually got to tour that as a kid at school lots of times. It was great. Fun little fact there. Cool. Yeah, it's neat. Emily, thank you all as well for making time today. And what is the most unexpected thing that has brought you joy recently?
So I actually recently bought a breakfast-focused cookbook and actually took some time over the last few weeks to start like going through it and making some of the recipes. And I love breakfast. And so I was getting kind of bored with my routine, and it's been really fun and like taking some time in the weekends to make like a nice big breakfast, like where you just kind of sit down, chill out, and have like a good meal. It's been really nice.
Is that the book that you were reading? Because I saw that you said you were looking at a bunch of cookbooks over your long break that you just had.
Yeah,
this is cool.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like weekend big breakfasts are amazing. That's a beautiful thing. Glenn, despite you telling me yesterday that you have no joy in your life at all, and Benjamin, that's what he said to me yesterday. Benjamin, that's what he said.
No, I said Benjamin was the joy. That's what I said.
No, okay. What is the most unexpected thing that's brought you joy recently?
So this is going to be a weird answer, but I'm so ready for it. And it's actually kind of in the vein of what Emily was saying. It's breakfast related.
Why do you always rip off my answer.
Wow, Kimija, I'm sorry. I actually like going to you first because you always have like really great first starter like answers to the questions. I'm gonna have
maybe
to
you
pick
should
Glenn
come
from
to
now
me
on first.
first
Yeah,
to
I'm gonna
see
have to
if-
pick Glenn first so that
Yeah,
he can't copy
yeah.
everybody else. That's just gonna do that.
No, but this is extremely bougie. I'm acknowledging that right up front. But like splurged on this fancy toaster that is the coolest ever because like it's a toaster or whatever. It's not a smart toaster or anything, but it's a toaster, has the buttons.
I was going to
But-
ask if it was connected to the internet.
No, the coolest part about it is you put your toaster bread or bagel whatever in and it automatically lowers, it does the thing, and then when it's done it'll pop up. But then the magic is if you don't take it out within like 10 seconds, it will lower it back down and then just keep it warm so that it can
Okay,
stay warm until you get to it.
You need to drop a link to that, dude.
It
Like, you
is.
absolutely need to drop a link to
It's
that.
it's not cheap. I
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
crowdsourced it. Like I was like for Christmas, I'm like everyone just chip in for this because it's stupid, but it is worth every penny. Like I love it. I love that toaster so much.
Wow.
So-
Yeah, see, I need that link.
Boom.
That, like keeping the toast perfect and warm until just ready to take it out, like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of joy right there.
And while it's not connected to the internet, I do have to unplug it and plug it back in like every few months.
Everything is awful. Everything.
Yeah.
Right. None of this goes even remotely as well as it does without the amazing work by our Overwatch Ashley. Ashley, good morning. And what is the most unexpected thing that brought you joy? Ashley has just started taking Pilates classes and wasn't expecting to like it so much. And I started playing pickleball. Both. Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. That is really
That was
awesome.
awesome
I mean,
for you, yes.
maybe not the pickleball, but like Pilates definitely. So
Wait, no, why is
Sure.
pickleball not awesome?
we don't have enough time.
Oh no, is this in the camp with
Oh,
TLS? Okay, we're
wow.
gonna. put
Yeah,
that
yeah.
in
Oh, yeah.
for
It's in
later.
the camp
Okay.
with TLS and apparently
Oh, no.
water now too. So yeah,
We're gonna do an after-hours show one day. We have a lot of beef.
Stormwatch After Dark. Okay, we'll do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I have one. I think I
Okay.
already told this one to Emily the other day, but for reasons you can go read a long thread I did on social media a couple weeks ago. For reasons I have not ridden my road bike in a couple of years, and I actually got it out. If it got done, like, it was in the shop for a little bit. It got done, and I actually took it out for the first time a little while, like 2 weeks ago, and I was scared for the first 5 miles. Not gonna lie. After that, it was like riding a bike. Sorry, it's a bad joke. And I was not expecting to be able to do this one hill. It's called Great Hill. It is not a great hill. It is a terrible, awful hill. It's a badly named hill. It should not be called that.
Great big hill.
Yeah, it's great. Well, yeah, but still not great. It's like there's no positive association with this. And I wasn't expecting to be able to do it because and I also realized the Peloton is way different than like an actual road bike. That's been that long. And I did the hill. And the whole thing about being back out there and not being afraid to be on the bike again, it was actually really great, and that brought a lot of joy. And now the show goes downhill from there. So we have
Emily didn't like your story, so she just.
No,
turned her
sorry. I was
camera
trying to hit the unmute button to say that's awesome, but I accidentally hit the camera button. And
yeah, it was. Yeah,
that's-
I offended Emily so much that she had to.
No, I think that's fantastic. I just couldn't hit the right button.
Actually, it's not going. The show's not going downhill yet. Except nobody does actually comment or like the episode. So please do that. Like, we're asking for joy. This could bring us a lot of joy if you go do that.
Please like.
Yeah. And I mean, now other really great things are a couple of folks from the cast are going to summer camp, and so I don't know. I guess because you guys are doing this Ghostbusters theme for Census, like you're now Dr. Venkman, Emily. Can you talk a bit about what this one talk is about and where it is at?
Yeah, so I didn't really consent to that part. I don't really know anything about that, but I am going to be doing a talk at Black Hat. It is a sponsored talk, but I will be talking about like real research. It's not going to be like just a product shill, but I'm going to be talking about certificates, just kind of why they're great, talking a little bit about our data set. I'm going to probably kill Bob in the process, but I think it's such an underappreciated sort of part of our data. And so I want to talk about TLS. I want to talk about certificates and how they're cool and how they're useful for threat hunting and all of that kind of stuff. So that should be, I'm excited to talk about that. I love certificates. So,
But now
yeah.
I want to fly out there because I mean I never want to get
And
any
just protest outside the room?
and just no. It's a sponsored talk. Like you have to let people in. So like, and just heckle.
Ooh.
Now I want to heckle. So
Man,
it's all
Bob's
right. I
pulling
won't
out
do
his
that.
like constitutional rights. He's
I
I'm just
am.
gonna get like a
Oh,
flurry of messages after the thing, just like I don't even know what you said, but here's what I think.
And okay, so Glenn's got an actual timely for today's episode, since we have like the Kev Master talking about Kev today on the show. You didn't talk on Kev. What did you talk about, Glenn?
yeah, I think I asked too many questions, and then so was like, "Why don't you just take Todd and, and go on your show with it?" Yes. So I'm basically exploiting some relationships here because we have Bob is obviously like data master and biz master, and Kev is a wonderful set of data. We also have our data sets. We have several data sets basically. And so what I wanted to do and working, and Bob's been a big part of this. He just will be present, so I get to look at it in person. But essentially, kind of looking at the data after it's been enriched and see what we can find or maybe try to extract from what's not written in black and white. And yeah, it's a short talk, and most of it, we're not going to hit on the things that everyone's done already. Like, there's this many CVS 10s or this many CWE, whatever, right? Like, straying a little bit off the path, the beaten path there. So it'll be fun. It's a short little talk with you guys.
Well, while I may have done a tiny bit of assist, Glenn has thought up some really cool questions and some angles that he found some cool surprises and some cool things that no one's ever thought of for Kev before. So it's gonna be a really good talk. And
If
Emily,
they don't
as if
get
Emily,
spilled between now and then.
as if Emily was not, already busy and engaged enough with real work and stuff that you do, you're doing another talk as well.
Yeah, so this will be at B-Sides Las Vegas in the Ground Truth track. And I'm going to be talking about some of the research that our team, like Himajit and others on the team, have been like hugely, hugely instrumental in doing this. I'm just kind of talking about it. But we're going to be talking about accurately quantifying industrial control systems exposure on the internet and kind of why that's challenging. Because there are a lot of missteps I think one can make, in particular when you're trying to consider what are the actual like important critical systems and what are things that are maybe just sort of like less important or mission critical for like keeping the lights on, literally or figuratively. And so we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about like kind of how the team has sort of built that data set.
I have to get
Since
my
this
mute
is going to
button
teach
off.
us how to count.
Yeah, I have to tell everybody, like Emily and Himajit and folks have like shown me. I mean, not just me, but like I'm just giving my reaction to it. Has shown me some of the things in this space. I'm a lot more concerned now than I was maybe a few months ago on this particular topic. So this should be something that if you're out there, you'd make time to go to. It will open up your eyes to an interesting, insecure world. And also some terrible. I mean, if you're doing any screenshots, like please, because like those are just terrible, horrible things to the eyes to see those interfaces that are out there on some of these things. And I gotta wonder, is Todd releasing a Kev right now? Is that why he's not here? I mean, we'll see. If Kev, someone's got to refresh, because if there's a Kev, I have to like edit the slides real quick.
I think it's
Anyway,
like where the squirrel has to run, or the hamster has to run on the wheel for so long to charge it up. So I think that's what Todd's doing right now.
oh
He's
well,
charging
yeah.
up
I mean, yeah, that's true. Like
the
yeah,
launch. Mhm.
yeah. So our cyber side chat is very timely, and it's not going to go the way it's going to be about topics you may be expecting, but it's not going to go where everyone is expecting it to go. So first of all, about 8.5 million people saw this or more, saw this particular screen. I'm not even going to say what it is because, it's a blue screen of death. And I am going to remove the slides because we're not going to go through a litany of slides for this section, but I do want to do a couple recaps of the areas that we're going to touch on, because what I wanted to have everyone talk about here, we had a pre-show meeting yesterday and we were talking about what we're going to do, and I think we all came to the consensus that we would like to have let's raise this discussion up a bit about some events from last week, to have a broader discussion, because it isn't about those individual events. Like whatever, I mean, I know a bunch of things impacted a lot of people, but the reality is we have to have a broader discussion on software liability, software quality. And I would even go so far as to say, now that it's been even more apparent again, we have a very interconnected world. And when one little thing blows up, a lot of things have problems, like people can't travel and things like that. So I want to talk about that fragility and part of the ecosystem. So You all remember that on July 18th, a faulty software update from a certain company affected what we now know is about 8.5 million endpoints that are out there. I don't know why Microsoft felt compelled to give that number, but that's great that they did that. It turns out that is less than 1% of all Windows machines on out and deployed out there, which is, it's also scary that Microsoft counts all this stuff because they have access to everything. It took down a lot of things. It disrupted a lot of stuff. You all know this. Like, we are not rehashing what happened there. What got buried in some of that is the night before, Azure. I never know how to pronounce that thing. Is Azure, whatever, however you want to say it. The central U.S. region had a problem. It caused problems for a lot of other major services that actually rely on that particular cheaper region as well too. So that was another one where reliance on a single thing caused a lot of problems that are out there. And for folks that may not have seen this either, because it got buried by a lot of news over the past 9 days, SolarWinds, there's been a number of folks that did legal challenges, lawsuits, whatever, against SolarWinds for this disruptions that it caused them years ago. And the judge dismissed all of them pretty much. And they may refile, but right now it's like everyone starts from square one on that one. So that's interesting in terms of everything. And then at that same week, the same week that got handed down, and this seemed to bypass everybody, SolarWinds had a major patch day the other day. It was, I think it was 11 vulnerabilities with 7 rated critical, like between 9.6 and 10, and they're really bad. Like, it's not, if it's exposed to the internet, which I'm not even going to ask Census because I just don't want to know if these things are on the internet. These things are really bad. They highlight some serious ongoing challenges for us in cybersecurity, for people in IT, and the impact of software updates. So I just wanted to start the discussion with everyone today. With all those things combined, this larger topic of what we just said at the beginning, like, what are some of your thoughts about where do we go from here? I really wanted to be like, how do we deal with the issues of quality and the liability and this interconnectedness and fragility? Like, where do we go from here? Anyone that wants to start, please go for it.
Okay, I'll start.
Okay, wait, we go nowhere. Okay, all right, that's the show. No, okay, Glenn, please go for it. I should call Glenn all the time anyway, so he doesn't steal everyone else's top answers. So
hey, there's a method to the madness. So there's so many angles to this. So it's really impossible to I think at least approach this in a sequential way. So one, there was essentially two outages near concurrent. There was the Azure outage, there was the CrowdStrike issue that we're all aware of. I'm for right now, I'm ignoring the crowd, I'm ignoring the root software. So I'm not looking at CrowdStrike in this conversation, and I'm not looking at Microsoft. What I'm looking at are the companies that have deployed this software and how they have chosen to do that. Anyone that's worked with me has heard me a million times reiterate that every security decision is a business decision. And so this is a good example of these companies made the decision, which has worked successfully, 100 times a day for however many years, to be on the bleeding edge or do small testing or no testing or deployment, whatever, right? Like, they have made a choice to say, from vendor to prod. I have to believe there was at least a little bit of testing in there. I want to believe that, but it doesn't feel like there was from this. But that's a business decision. So it's a good time for organizations, like anything that you have that is a lot of security controls are critical inline functions. You have to make sure that you reevaluate your risk posture, at an interval, to make sure that maybe new leadership or new technologies or new processes that you've implemented internally, like your previously accepted risk tolerance is still comfortable to your business, and then make really, really good plans for when this happens, which is essentially like, we made, it, generally speaking, the organizations, the airlines, the banks, whatever, said, CrowdStrike's proven to be effective more than not, so we just ship whatever, however they did it. That's a decision that we can look back on and question, but that's a decision that was made. So moving past that, then the question is, you have to make sure that you have your plan B ready at the get-go because of what we just witnessed. And that's where I think if I remove the root cause of what happened and just look at the recovery of it, like for example, I think American Airlines recovered apparently pretty quick, like a day or something, whereas Delta seems to be, as of this morning, still like working through their recovery. So it just kind of switches the conversation in my head back to like, you can make that decision, it's fine, but you have to make sure that your plan B is solid and strong and everyone's comfortable and has, has awareness of what that fallback plan is. And that's where, and recovery, that's a big part of this one.
But
So
what
that's
if
kind
your
of the
plan?
first thing that came to mind.
But what if your plan A was run Windows 3.1 and 95 in perpetuity, like a certain other airline did and does?
I mean, it feels like that takes care of a lot of problems at this point. Like, unless there's a blizzard. But anyway, that's a deep joke.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah, it was. That
might
was
be
a
over.
really deep joke.
Okay.
Cool. Just to give other folks some time to jump in here. Any things on this moving forward? What can we do? Or if you don't want to do that and you want to be doom and gloom, what are some of the implications moving forward? Like I'd mentioned to the team, I think the guy's last name is Class. I just remember the name of the book. It's called Fluke. It's a really good book because it talks about a portion of it talks about the fragility of our modern society because of how interconnected we are, and technology is such at the center of it. And like I've read him and a bunch of other folks. I'm saying like this is going to happen again and probably sooner than we think. But like, is that the necessary outcome? Like, are there things that can be done right now? Is there advice beyond what Glenn has already given to organizations to not have this be a thing moving forward?
So I don't know that I fully believe that this is a thing that is going to happen again and soon.
Okay.
That is going to happen soon, I'll say, at this kind of scale, because I think this was particularly unusual. Like again, I think we're very bad at probability, right? That things have gone smoothly, roughly, for the most part, right? Like I think there have been some blips over the few years, but like we haven't really seen something quite this large and widespread before, at least in recent history, I don't think. So I think part of it is realizing like this was sort of, I don't want to use the word unprecedented, but this was a really large kind of event that we haven't really.
Why not add it to the list?
Let's just put it in there. Let's throw it in there. Let's get all the keywords, right? But like one thing that's been on my mind, this was the result of like an update, right? And one thing that I think in security, having been on like security engineering teams in the past, that we always kind of struggled with was ensuring like timely upgrades and patch management. And there's always a little bit of push and pull between security and sort of your DevOps team or whoever fills that role of kind of maintaining your infrastructure, of making sure that things are updated in a timely manner, because there are breaking changes that happen, right? Like not usually at this scale, but sure, there are things that will get pushed and break something in your environment because you've got a package that's the wrong version or something like that. And so what I don't want to happen, I don't have a solution here, but one thing I don't want to see is this making folks more hesitant to patch. I think, to kind of double down on what Glenn said, I think this just means as an organization, you need to have a really good system for testing these things. I love the idea of auto updates. I think it's a great idea in theory, but like test it in an environment that mimics prod first. Like it's probably
Stage
worth doing it.
rollouts?
Right? Like it's
Start with
probably worth
5 or
doing that.
10.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been at organizations that have handled this different ways where, yeah, you roll the rollout, or you stage the rollout rather. Or yeah, you ensure that you've tested it in a situation that removes a lot of the questions around whether it might actually break something. There's always that 1% chance that even after testing, something could go wrong, but I think it really drops those chances.
But we have to double the year-over-year quarter profits, Emily. I mean, if we spend money on that,
you can't do that if everything's down.
If we spend money on that, like the CEOs can't get triple bonuses and buy more yachts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really does come down to thinking about, I guess, that the CIA triad, like availability is a part of security. It's our job.
Yeah, the A didn't stand up this weekend.
Yeah, the A fell over.
So I
Hold
mean, a
on,
lot
hold
of
on.
organizations.
I want to give him. I want to give him a chance because I know him and Jay has great opinions. So I want to hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Amazing. That was all. That was my opinion. I fully echo what Emily said. Patch management. It was both hilarious and also alarming to see certain airlines kind of changing their marketing tactic to brag about using, a 1990s operating system. Um, and I almost think that so I wanna talk about, like, the impacts of this for a second, right? Because I think a lot of this since it was so widespread, right? I think this is the first security incident in a while that, like, my friends knew about and I could talk about too in other industries. Um, I think it was so big because it disrupted travel, right? Um I feel like these other kind of the first thing I thought about was hospitals, which I haven't heard a ton about. I don't know if anybody else has heard a ton about. I know it disrupted 911 in certain areas. I'm not hearing about that as much. I'm hearing people talk about their flights being canceled.
Yes. So I asked around. I tried to collect info on that. So like as it was happening, I asked around for a lot of places. I got a couple reports. It was mostly like not U.S. based ones because by the time that much of the chaos happened, like the U.S. was sort of prepared to not boot their systems for the most part. So like it wasn't that big of a deal over here.
Time
But there
zones
was
helped.
yeah, there were a few. Like there was a hospital system in Portugal as one that was one a Mastodon friend, Twitter friend. Oh, so Mastodon friend that told me about. I actually edited the Wikipedia entry for that one. I feel pretty good. So it did not disrupt healthcare as much as I thought it was going to either. I am very thankful for that. But yeah, keep going, Hemaja.
No, same. But it kind of makes me think that maybe when we're talking about like critical industries, um, we need to add a couple more to the list and think about like what single point of software failure exists in each of these because kind of going back to what Emily was previewing with the ICS talk, like we find a lot of kind of software diversity in these other critical infrastructure sectors like industrial control systems and sometimes healthcare, but kind of in some of these more I don't even know what to call them like tier two, like life supporting
Supply chain,
functions. This
basically.
is making me think supply chain exactly. This is making me think like we put more pressure on certain industries than others to kind of have this backup plan, right? Everyone knows what to do when there's a fire in most cases, unless except for the people in that episode of The Office. But like everyone has like fire drill. Everyone has like what to do in terms of an electricity outage. I don't think we treat internet outages the same way in a lot of these kind of like supply chain industries. We treat it like a minor inconvenience and an anomaly, right? It is an anomaly, but not to be doom and gloom. Maybe it will become more common. I don't think this was very very unique incident, but like I I hate to say this, but like maybe it's not like prevention. It's like okay, you do need a backup plan, for an internet outage, same as you have for a fire drill, something like that.
Well, like even what like compounded this is imagine the update from Crowdstrike is rolling out and you start seeing issues and then you're like, I'm gonna go to Teams and alert my IT staff, but then Teams is down because Microsoft is having their outage. Like there's actually several layers and events that were happening concurrently that also impeded this. And so like I I'm not assigning blame here publicly, but I'm going to say there is shared fault as far as yeah, like bad software update, that sucks. It happens, but that sucks, like let's improve that. Maybe an OS shouldn't allow a situation to or let software put yourself in a situation like this where it's unrecoverable remotely, stuff like that. So it's like a little bit to this vendor, a little bit to this vendor, and a little bit to the organizations that, made that business decision of bleeding edge over, you know, any or enough testing. Hindsight's 2020, but what I don't like, I think maybe Emily, this is kind of what you're saying too, is but we don't need to overreact as far as like, okay, we're going to delay updates by a week. we're going to delay updates by a month or whatever. Like, no, like this has worked, 250 million times in a row and failed once. Like, let's correct those failures for this incident and not have a knee-jerk reaction that says we're going to make everything less secure by slowing our updates. Like, this is not a new problem to solve. Like, we've been working on it. Most large organizations know their per minute downtime, especially if they're airline, finance, manufacturing, or whatever. So again, use those numbers to your advantage when you're building your security case, your business case to leadership for we need more high availability, or we need more redundancy, or whatever. Like, use those numbers to your full advantage, because this is a great example to show the Y2K-ness that can happen.
So there's a really great question here, kind of off of that, as an offshoot of that, a question in the comments from Jason who says, who do you think should be responsible for testing security patches? Should it be security blue team? Should it be the servers team, endpoint team? Do we create a new team? And I think this is a really interesting question, because I think there's maybe like two parts to this answer, depending on kind of what we're testing, right? Like, if you're testing whether this is a breaking change, I think there's probably some role for the infrastructure team, whether that's DevOps or systems or like whoever that is in your organization. Like, I think that there's probably a role for them there potentially, and depending on how big your security team is. But then I think in terms of like the security posture of the update, like that's a different question. That's where I think the security team needs to get involved. But if you're talking about, again, a very blunt, like breaking change, availability issue, like that's almost in the territory of like SRE, I would think, where there's some kind of collaboration that needs to happen between your security and your SRE team or your DevOps team, because their kind of mandate is keeping the lights on. So that would be my thought there.
So keeping those topics and these two particular incidents in top of mind before the next one, and SolarWinds having an egregious number of really bad CVEs and software that caused problems before, and they're kind of like something that a lot of researchers put a lot of focus on for obvious reasons too. Is actually having because there is no liability for software still right now. Like, the company behind what happened last week for the 8.5 million nodes is going to get away with it, because you all sign off on that. Like, every purchasing person signs off on that, because there's no liability, but you don't guarantee blah blah. Is it about time that we have software liability, and is that actually going to fix anything, or is it just going to stifle quote unquote innovation?
Man, so I do think that we need software liability. Well, I guess that's the period. Like, we do need software liability, like for the vendors that make it. But how do you do that in a responsible way? I don't know, right? Because again, it's code, it's software, you can do all the right things, and it just happens. So, I think for me, the line, like when it becomes negligence and stuff like that, like if you look at it through like more traditional legal terms, like software negligence should absolutely be a category of penalties or whatever. But it would have to be so egregious. So like in this case, again, I don't know. Like, I don't like, what if the vendor at the heart of this issue has in their documentation, step 14, ensure you test before rollout, then whose situation is it, right? But I know that you're kind of also referring to like the edge devices that are deployed everywhere, that we just keep seeing these CVSS, 9.8
Yep.
after 9.8 after 9.8. And that's cool and fine and dandy the first, 10, 20, or 100. But at what point do you not say, like, we need to audit our code base? CISA has been doing secure computing initiatives. Like, there's a lot of guidance. There's a lot more newer technologies and stuff. Like, how do we as an industry encourage or force organizations with these older code bases and legacy products to say, like, you're gonna have to audit the whole thing instead of just fixing this one directory traversal? Let's look through all the code for all your directory traversals, or like zip slips and stuff. Like, every email gateway, like every 3 months, has some kind of If you send a zip file in a certain way, like it executes on the gateway. So
But isn't that what compliance was supposed to get us? You have to pen test a couple times a year. You have to follow all these rules. So like, I don't know that I'd say that's been successful.
yeah, PCI. I don't know.
Oh.
What if the software liability was a bit more targeted, like in terms of the negative penalties, and that if you if your software has n number of vulnerabilities a year that have exploits that do whatever and cause problems, or stuff like last week, maybe C-suite doesn't get bonuses for 3 years or something like that. Like, I'm picking on them like I do a lot on these episodes, on the various episodes. They're the reason why this happens. Like it's like they set the tone of the culture all the way down. They set what's important for the organization. And like one of them couldn't even be bothered to apologize last week. So before, and then had to be told how to do it right and still didn't. So that means I'm not going to read a whole lot into there because I'm not here to do any kind of like that. But if that's the attitude, that people don't care. Like, so how, like, if the liability focused solely on that, would there be a change? Like, because we are not seeing changes happen at all across most of the industries out there. We just don't see it. And I'm just tossing out like maybe that's where it can go versus have it be a direct fine or penalty on the organization itself. Wondering if that's a potential solution.
I think it sounds and feels good in theory, but I don't think it works. Like, I mean, look at the CISO role in the last 12, 14 months. There's been a lot of external penalty pressure changes there, but everyone's still figuring out, like, does it matter? Or like in this case, like with SolarWinds last week, there was a big court case or court cases thrown out, dismissed against the some of the prior issues. So I don't know. I think it comes down to it's just really difficult to say like what is your fault, like because it's so egregious and you chose to not do a thing, and what is just the cost of existing with ones and zeros. Because if you said like you can't have 10 CVSS 10s in a year or else you don't get paid, then after number 9, like suddenly there won't be any more, right? Like they'll just magically stop until the next calendar year. So the metrics are always going to drive the motivation. So I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I feel
can
like
we
no
just be
matter
better
what.
people?
Well, yes, like I feel like no matter what, like I'm sitting here thinking through this, like as you're both kind of discussing, and like all I see happening is a way to like get like to circumvent those rules. Like that's always the incentive that I think we're building in with these types of things. Like the intent is there, but Glenn, I think that's like a perfect example of how that would go, right? Like, oh, well, we found 9. We're gonna stop for this year. We're gonna, focus on some other initiatives for the rest of the quarter, and then next year we'll pick back up. And it's like that's not gonna work, I think. And again, I think Jason in the comments has a really great point that like eventually, I think this starts to show up as like loss of trust in vendors. I feel like at some point when the renewal for a lot of these edge devices with their multiple, critical vulnerabilities comes up, like maybe people are having a different discussion about like, okay, are we renewing or are we going to rip this out and like put something else in? The problem is, what is the something else in that category, right? Like, I don't know what that is. It's just kind of a mess. But the thing I keep thinking about is that I have a lot of empathy for the folks on the individual folks on the teams at these places.
Yep.
Who are, there's good people at all of these places where they're actually trying to move the needle. They're trying to do something good. Like, the thing that happened last week, I'm sure there are dozens of people who worked really hard to like remediate and to try and figure out what was going on. And, we don't see that yet. Right. But I have a lot of empathy for folks on those teams and in those situations because it's never fun. You're like, your company is getting, raked over the coals in the media, and you're like, but there are some of us here who are really trying. Like, we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to help. But yeah, it's hard if the top is kind of rotten.
Cool. So
Speaking of trying to help,
yeah, I know. We're gonna push the stop button on this particular conversation. There are 3 threads from it that the team doesn't know about because you all caused the threads to happen in my head. We're gonna pick up on probably next episode because you had some really cool insights that I want to double tap into. Or did I actually say that? I'm sorry. And now I would like to let's teleport Todd from CISA HQ. There he is. Todd, how's it going, ma'am?
It's going great. Hey, long time chatter, first time hoster.
You have been a vital component to this show. I feel compelled to read Todd's extensive and cool bio. Todd is employed at CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, part of the U.S. government, as the Vulnerability Analysis and Operations Team Lead. That's a long title. He's also a founder and CNA point of contact for AHA. And he spends most of his time involved in the vulnerability research and coordinated vulnerability disclosure. Todd's got over 30 years, so that's about like between that picture and what he looks like now, of hands-on security
10
experience.
years old. That's it.
I was going to ask how old that image was.
It's almost exactly 10 years old.
Stretching from in-band telephony switching to modern IoT implementations. He has held IT ops, security, software engineering, and management positions in large organizations such as Rapid7, 3Com, Dell, and Westinghouse. As both an offensive and defensive practitioner, Todd's a CVE board member, has authored several research papers, and hosted the Security Nation podcast. He is also a Travis County election judge, in Texas, and is an internationally tolerated horror fiction expert. If you don't follow Todd on Mastodon to get some of the horror fiction drops, you should. Todd can be uniquely identified at his GitHub profile, and there's lots of links from there, and also his Gravatar. And I am now going to take this down so that we can actually see Todd.
Hello.
Todd, thank you for joining us today.
It's great to have been invited.
For everyone that is live, if you have specifically CISA Kev questions or horror fiction questions, I'm sure Todd can answer.
Okay, let me get my coffee ready.
Whoa, look at this.
Oh, you got that fast.
Fancy mug.
Yeah, that's a nice looking mug you got there.
It's a Stormwatch branded mug that I found.
And is that a Kev shirt?
It is. It is a inaugural shirt that we had printed when the Kev passed 1,000. So we're not celebrating that we have more than 1,000.
I know it's hard.
It's hard. We recognize that we have over.
That's how we felt with tags. We're like, we're not celebrating, but good job, everyone.
So, I mean, not that anyone who listens to this doesn't know what Kev is, but can you talk? I mean, like you went from industry to government. You went from an extensive career in vulnerability management and like actually finding vulnerabilities and all those things to helping the world, literally helping the world prioritize vulnerability remediation. Like this is what you do is so stupid cool. And could you just I want to like, I'm putting a quarter in and you just go.
Short version. I helped put together the KEV, which is the Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. It is mandated, as a matter of fact, by BOD 2201, which is the Binding Operational Directive. Thank you. And you should be taking notes as you will be presenting on this in under a month.
Like 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's pretty fun. I basically write vulnerability book reports all day long. That's pretty much my job. And we figure out mainly, has a vulnerability, been identified? Has it been exploited in the wild? And is there a clear remediation? Because we're not in the business of just saying like, oh no, these bugs are bad, go fix them. Good luck. We say, go fix them with this right here, right? Like that link. And so those are all like core components of the KEV. I have a whole talk track on like all the weird little side streets that we can go down. But we definitely don't have the time for that. But basically, you're right. Planet Earth seems to rely on this list as a prioritization tool. The federal executive civilian branch of the U.S. government must rely on it. Everyone else should rely on it. It is a very, I think, a very high quality signal, and it's the reason why I came over to CISA. As you know, I was a big KEV fanboy when it first launched back in November of 2021. Back when it was a little baby, it only had like 230 vulnerabilities on it.
On day
It was
one,
so cute. It was just so cute.
I know.
So tiny,
It was just
so
a little,
naive.
8-pound, 5-ounce, 230 vulnerability baby, um, which is probably fewer the vulnerabilities than actual babies have. And it is very fulfilling to work on this kind of thing, right? Like, say what you want about government work. I am definitely a government scientist / bureaucrat, but it is nice to know that the work I do actually matters, and beyond just like my customers. The work I did at Rapid7 totally matters. The work I did at Dell totally mattered. But it mattered for them, and it mattered for their customers. This matters for kind of everybody.
The world. It absolutely matters for the world. The world is a
Did
much
you get
safer place because of this. Sorry, Glenn, but it is safer.
Did
But
you
yeah,
get
go
to
ahead,
push the Kev button today?
I did. You should check.
Oh, yeah.
big
So
red
for
button, you just-
everybody, we do our best to get this man to tell us ahead of time, and it never happens. And he does, and like he doesn't. No eye movements give it away. Nothing gives it away. It's so frustrating.
We really hoped that Stormwatch coffee cup would be what we needed to bribe him. But
Yeah, but didn't work.
Wasn't enough.
Wait a minute. I didn't check it for RFIDs or bugs or anything.
So though I have a question that you may not be able to answer, and I didn't see it before. Why did you all get rid of the RSS feed?
What are you talking about? The RSS? Oh, did we get rid of the RSS feed?
Yeah, about 3 weeks after you started it. Yeah, which is why a bunch of us have had to write tooling to make our own for those kind of things.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for that.
Okay.
Probably because we just publish the JSON directly, so you can kind of RSSify it. Kind of.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's not hard. It's not hard.
Yeah. I use the JSON all the time. I don't really use the. People should use the Kev website. It's great. It's one of the shortest, but not the shortest URLs in the U.S. government. It's CISA, 4 letters, .gov/Kev, 3 letters. There is a shorter one out there. Yeah.
What is the? Can you?
Yeah. What
say
is the
the
shorter
one
one?
is?
It's CISA.gov/AI is shorter.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay. Well, that's also relevant to our interest site.
AI once again.
Yeah.
AI ruins everything.
Most
I actually have kind of a silly question.
Yeah.
So obviously things that are on Kev you've confirmed that there is exploitation somewhere.
Yes.
Can you talk about sort of the way you verify those? How much of it is people reporting it to you versus how much of it is sort of you all going out and doing your own hunting and investigation, if you can speak to that?
Absolutely. It is, we have a wide array of methods, right? So like public-private partnership is a real big deal at CISA in everything we do, and specifically in Kev. So we rely a lot on software vendors telling us like, oh, our customers just got popped by this thing. Or researchers that say like, oh, we saw this thing getting popped. Or victims coming to us and saying, we got popped. Or other parts of the government come to us, right, and say like, hey, we saw this on an engagement, or we saw this as part of an incident response, or other international governments. We have like pretty strong partnerships with, I mean, I can think of like a dozen international governments off the top of my head that we deal with like pretty routinely. So it flows in from everywhere. And one of the misconceptions about Kev is that we only put things on that were exploited inside the US government. And that's not true. We cover things that are exploited no matter what. The bar to get on the Kev is it has to be like the vulnerability has to be relevant and pose a significant risk to federal enterprise stuff, right? But that doesn't mean it has to be popped by us. Like if Mexico gets popped by something, that matters to the federal government, right? a lot. They're kind of our number 1/2 trading partner. So they're like, if Canada gets popped, it matters to us. So other things like that definitely do get on the Kev. And I will say, we work pretty closely with my friends at Grey Noise for some of that validation, for sure. Even most recently, there was the ServView bug that came up on Kev. Actually, I have it right over here. Which one is it? It is CVE 2024-28995.
That's scary.
That's
how did you have like? Did you have a scrolling?
I've got a list like right over here. I've got like a full board and everything, and yeah. So that took a little while to get on the Kev because like the first reports were all breathless. Oh no, this is getting exploited everywhere. Like, and you saw it in media reports all over the place, but we didn't have any like evidence for it, and all of the traffic we saw was mere scanning, right? And like trying to get etc password off a Windows host is not going to get you far, and even if it did work, it's not going to get you much. And so we have to like make that distinction between like widespread scanning, which is an important signal, and people should pay attention to it for sure. This is like gray noise bread and butter right here. Definitely pay attention to that signaling, but it doesn't hit the CAV until we can see that attackers have actually weaponized it and are actually using it to do bad things. And the reason for that is because the KEV is expensive. When something gets on the KEV, it triggers a series of events that cost taxpayer money in the end, right? Because federal government has to do something about it. And so we want to be extra sure that the things we put on the KEV are not just like, you should patch this. That's the job of like private industry, right? And because when your security vendor says, hey, you should patch this, you then get to say like, well, maybe we will, right? Yeah. You are not bound by your security vendor to actually go do a thing. And so like, you can
remember when I said it's a business decision, like maybe at that point, it's not a business decision. It's a
mandate. Yeah. Every vendor I know of like has some big red KEV button in there somewhere at this point. And they should, I think. And that is, so it's a valuable way to cut like the bare minimum low bar of the things that you should have coverage for. And also don't wait for the KEV. Like when you see stuff like the Serve You thing pop off with like the widespread scanning, definitely go patch that. Don't wait for me.
So we've been monitoring the Federal Register for a few months now because we discovered that like the CISA especially is putting out lots of requests through there for for all sorts of things. You have a couple really cool initiatives like CISA and the KEV program do. Can you talk about some of those because they're kind of exciting? It's hard to say that because it's like,
what are you talking about?
So the one where you're going to let I guess not arbitrary, but you're going to have a program where more folks can contribute.
Oh yeah. So it turns out making websites is hard.
Yeah.
And so we need to justify it. Right now,
have you ever heard of WordPress?
Yes, I've heard of WordPress.
Now forget that you've heard of WordPress.
Okay. We do have an email alias, kev@cisa.dhs.gov. I read that all the time. But we want to make it easier for people to roll up to a web form and say like, hey, I have evidence of exploitation. This is like drop down list of this is what my evidence looks like. Basically guide it, because right now it's very free form, right? It's very human based. If we had a web front end, we could like guide what we want from you like out of the gate, right? For that. So like the kinds of evidence that you have, where you saw it exploited, what's the bug, all that stuff. And we're working toward having that like see something, say something web form basically somewhere close by CISA.gov/kev. So that is exciting. Like that's a big deal. It's always a big deal when the government makes a new website.
I can definitely confirm that your team is quite stringent at times for that exploitation.
Yes, I have had conversations with Glenifer specifically about, hey, how about put this on the KEV? And I'm like, I don't know. But this, I'm like, that's not it.
It's funny because our whole business is exploitation. So we're like, and you're like, well, like, but then what did they do? I'm like, well, but they did this. And you're like, but then what? I'm like,
So, but it's very fair. All of our analysis is very human driven. I'm not the only one doing it. We have a team behind the scenes.
Actually, how big is the KEV team? I think people have tried to ask that before.
You're not going to tell our enemies that.
I mean, I could just go to the government.
It's smaller than you'd think, like everything, right? Like,
okay.
I remember I had interviewed at Facebook like a million years ago, and they wanted me for like their network ops security. I'm like, oh, cool. How big's the team? They're like 3. I'm like, what? So yeah, it's smaller than you think, but we're mighty.
Tape everywhere all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you all do a ton for the community because it helps organizations, but the community relies on this resource too and does a lot. Is there anything that we all in the community and even organizations beyond like that see something, say something do for you?
That's a big one. I would say the biggest thing so one thing that we've run into kind of a lot lately are vendor patches that don't mention the CVE that they're patching. that causes a big problem for me because it makes it really hard to sell that, like, and I don't know why they don't do it. Like, when we
I know
put
why they
a
don't do it.
remediation guidance on the Kev, we say, like, go install this thing. And then if we have a link to that thing that doesn't mention the CVE I was just talking about, then we'll get questions, right? And we always get asked, it's like, are you sure? But are you sure this actually fixes the thing? Are you sure? Yeah. And I'm like, well, we can only be sure about things so long. But yes, it
Search
seems
engines can't find the bug if you don't put the CVE in it that you're searching for.
There is a bug on the Kev, and here's a little a CTF for you. There's a bug on the Kev that was added recently where I was looking at their open source bug queue, and one of the users had rolled into the bug queue and said, "Hey, my vulnerability scanner says that this version is vulnerable to the CVE." New line. How do I suppress the version number? And I'm like, oh, my man, you were so close.
Instructions unclear.
Right. So I think vendors being more forthcoming about what CVEs their patches patch. Ideally the patches, of course, are, you know, very surgical and don't include new features like dark mode or whatever. Unless you really want them to patch it, then definitely include dark mode, because that seems to work. And then as far as like see something, say something, I mean, just reach out. We'll ask you questions. That's unavoidable, as Glenn has found. So please be patient with us as we ask our very probing questions. We never want or ask for like private customer data. If you want to give us logs, that's great. Please redact them, like, because like anything you give me, right, is now floating around in some government computer somewhere. So it's in your interest and my interest and your customer's interest to redact everything. But just something that shows, you know, the exploitation ideally steps up to it, ideally steps after it if you can do that. But if all you have is like, hey, they popped it and it was this HTTP GET request because it was a goofy path traversable, it's like, all right, just tell me what they were traversing to then. And that is super helpful. So as much detail as you can give, and please be patient when we ask for more details.
I do have one question, but I don't know if you can answer it, but we'll see.
Right.
And I'm torn because I actually have a lot of questions, but I don't want to like run my.
I don't want to blow up your whole SummerCon talk. Or
yeah, exactly. But in the analysis, there are a lot of Kev entries that are Kev'd very, very close in time, very, very close in time to their release or their announcement.
Yes.
So obviously that's coordinated, which is awesome, public-private partnership. But have you had instances or situations where that patch is taking too long? And what is too long? Essentially, like, you know, of exploitation, but you can't. Yeah, like, for the fix.
Nothing really leaps to mind. We're always hassling people to patch. Like, we put due dates on there for a reason. And our due dates are almost always 3 weeks out, with some exceptions. One thing.
Oh, I meant more from the vendor side. Like, if you know of exploitation.
Oh, how long it is? Oh, I see what you're asking.
But you can't have it till there's a fix, and that fix might be taking too long.
So we will.
Has there been some drama around that? Or
so we'll hold back if there is no fix yet. But that kind of timing is measured in days, not weeks, in almost all cases. Because if the vendor is just not being able to find their patch, find their patch mojo, then we have an escape valve on the Kev, because a clear mitigation is turn it off, right? Okay. And so we can default back to that. I don't like doing it. And there are some cases where we actually can't do that. Like, and I'm thinking mainly like operational technology, SCADA, stuff like that. You turn the thing off, the dam stops working and you flood a village.
It all turns off. Yeah.
So those we will never say like, oh, just turn it off, and let everyone downstream die. Like, we never do that. But if a vendor is being slow to act, like, first off, we're on them. We're on their case all of the time, and we push and push and push. but if it would go, if something like that were to happen and it was like 2 or 3 days, it's going to go on the Kevin. They're not going to like that,
Cool.
right?
Yeah,
That
no,
was
that's cool to know. Yeah.
Wow. Anybody else have any more questions for Todd? Because I have one that you also may not
Any
be
questions
able
in
to
chat? I
answer.
can't even see the chat this time
Yeah,
because on this side of the screen.
Yeah, the no one is asking questions in the chat, which I am very sad harbor master because of that. So you might not be able to answer this question, and I'm not being evil with the question. Like, you added a great field to the known ransomware one. Like, that's a super helpful field.
I'm glad you like it.
Everyone should go to Glenn's talk to hear about that field too, by the way. Are there, I don't want to know what, but like, what is the decision process for adding a new field, and like, are new fields coming down the pike at all?
As you might expect, the decision process is arduous. Requires a lot of buy-in from a lot of different stakeholders, as we say. Yes, we still use the word stakeholder even inside government. So there is a currently empty field for those who watch the JSON of CWEs : array.
Oh, very excited about that one. Very excited about that one.
It is currently unpopulated. It will be populated shortly. I don't know when. I don't know exactly when. Right. My guess would be before the end of the month. Because we have it all. We have almost all of them already.
Is that because of the other initiative you have that's like adding more metadata to CVE entries?
Yes, and
Cool.
and that's the kind of thing, right? Like,
it's so cool.
Looking far forward, like, I want a tagging vocabulary, so I can say, like, this is a vulnerability that affects mobile. This is a vulnerability that affects a server. This is a vulnerability that affects client software. Stuff like that. We're still kind of working out like how that would work, and we don't want to have like an explosion of tags that are just like whatever that strikes our fancy. But we are looking to enrich the Kev directly with more about the vulnerabilities, so you can do things like do historical analysis, right? Like, we've got like 1,100 of them or something right now.
Yeah, Glenn, how many do they have, Glenn?
Yeah, Glenn. Yeah, Glenn.
How many
Kevs are there? I mean, like, you're doing this talk in 2 weeks. How many Kevs are there?
That's right.
Well, I can pull it up if you give me like 3 seconds.
I can answer faster. It's 1,136.
No, it's not. It's 1,000. No, I'm just kidding. Wait, is it 133? No, 1137. No, 36.
Well,
in about 200, we'll hit another magic number.
Yeah, the 1137 is because the one you had to pull, because that was a silly one. It was a silly one.
Yeah, I wish there was a whole talk on that. I'm not gonna lie.
That's all right. We're not going to do that. So it's cool that there's a process for that, and I think the CWE is really going to help. Would there be any consideration?
All of that is like inferable from other sources, right? Like, you can go.
But left joining is a pain. Left join
is a pain, and we just want to keep it all in like one. That's another consideration, by the way, is like just like keeping the JSON as simple as we can make it without a bunch of convoluted stuff. I don't know if you've looked at the CVE JSON 5.0, but it is getting
it's a monster. It's a monster.
Getting a little unwieldy, and we want to avoid that, right? So,
have you considered putting? So you have the vendor and the software, which is awesome. Have you thought about putting CPE information in it? Oh no, I touched the nerve.
Oh, it's CPE. I've learned. I just like. Have you seen the movie Event Horizon?
Yes. Okay. Wow. I mean, I knew CPE.
Someone translate for those of us who have not.
Event Horizon. Spoilers alert. Skip ahead 12 seconds if you haven't seen it. The protagonist ends up like looking into the heart of evil and pulling his own eyes out.
Okay, that sounds about right, actually. Okay.
How do you feel about it?
And that's how I feel about
wow,
CPEs.
okay.
Yeah. CPE strings, they do a thing. Okay. They're like a pretty well understood like format and syntax. But boy, oh boy, the moment you start digging into like, well, how do you actually come up with CPEs? Surely, if I just look at the CPE dictionary, I will have one canonical source for a company called Microsoft. No. So there's a lot of hobgoblins lurking around in CPE land.
Wow.
And they all pull my eyes out.
So if nobody else has any
I can
questions,
see that horror fiction knowledge at work.
Yeah. It's not a terrible movie. But
it's a great bad movie.
Since we have no more questions for this particular topic, do you have anything more you want to do, like tell people about Kev or tell people about the program?
Use a Kev. I love the Kev. All hail Kev, your new god.
Wait, Bob, are you
Flu,
going to ask Todd what brings him joy?
I did. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot.
Yeah,
I forgot to do that. I'm saying thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Glenn. Yeah.
So, not entirely unexpected. It was unexpected how much these brought me joy.
Oh no.
But I bought new roller skates.
Whoa.
Oh, those are so
awesome.
Cool.
Yep, they're pink and black. They're from Impala. And
are you going to take them to Vegas?
Yeah, I am taking them to Vegas. Thursday night at Crystal Palace is adult skate night.
I saw you post that. Yeah.
And adult is defined as 30 and up.
Don't
Gen Z need not apply.
Don't roll those on the pavement outside though, because it's like the pavement's gonna be super hot. Like don't do that.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna melt
your wheels. So my plan is to kind of go halvesies between the Gray Noise experience, and which is also Thursday night, and popping out to Crystal Palace for a little.
So we're literally going to get to see Todd roll out of our party.
Maybe we should move the party to the roller rink.
Yes, you should.
Because drunk people on roller skates, what happened?
What could go wrong?
Overwatch and Jordan will love that.
Look, when you impact drunk people hard, they tend to break fewer bones than sober people.
They're loose. They don't. We're gonna skip the good. We're gonna skip the good news and give Emily a chance to ruin it next week for us. So that's good. And this is just a quick mention here that we have, for reasons, started a blog series on the election security landscape, mostly because it still seems like people, despite the fact that CISA's got an amazing resource for it, and a bunch of other places have amazing resources for it, and there's an entire ISAC devoted to it, and we've had numerous leaders in government assure us about how awesome these things are, and they have been awesome security-wise. We just want to help people understand what the real risks are a little bit. And it's not gonna be a deep dive series. We're just gonna cover some of the things that you need to know, and you could talk to other people and humans that aren't in cybersecurity about it, so in case they have any questions about it, because a lot of things are going to be happening between now and November. So this is the first in the series, and we got it RSS. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on anything related to election security.
Election security is near and dear to the heart of CISians everywhere. CISalians? I don't know what the
CISalien sounds great.
Citizens. Yes, perfect. We work real closely with state, local, tribal, territorial governments to make sure that elections are smooth, safe, and secure.
Yep.
And we expect everything to be pretty much okay in 2024.
Oh, 100%.
Let me unqualify that. Okay in 2024.
Yeah. We're gonna have a link to CISA has a massive election website. It's amazing, and the next one in the series has a link directly to that. So folks, if you want, you can Google it or Kaggy it or whatever and find it now. But you can wait till the next one to figure it out too. And we have some tags. We are 2 away from our official tag list for creation list for 2024, from having the same number of tags at this point in time this year that we had for the entire year last year. The team is amazing, and we are about to have scads more for reasons as well that everyone will find out in a couple of weeks. So if you haven't patched these things, you should patch these things like Todd just said. And was there a Kev today, guys? Did anyone do a refresh? Because my counter.
There are 2.
There's been 0 days since the last carry. What are they? Can someone say what they are?
I think I can say what they were.
Oh, Todd. Todd. That's right. I'm sorry. I forgot we had CISA here. This is great. Now go for it. What is what are they today, Todd?
So one is in something called Microsoft Internet Explorer 8.
What?
It's
what?
Yeah. It is CVE 2012 4792. It's not the oldest.
Yeah,
it's
Glenn.
Glenn.
Glenn. We have to reduce some charts, Glenn.
Yeah.
Thanks, Todd.
It's not even top 5 oldest, actually.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
And then the other, and that is it's a use after free. Bad guy can pop your browser if you go to their website. And remote code execution. So the other one is CVE 2024 39891, which is a Twilio, Authy information disclosure. This was the issue where bad guys can slam up against the API and reveal registered phone numbers. So
Wait, we have an API. Wait, we have an API CVE making it into Kev.
It is because, and I'll tell you why. No, this one was kind of interesting, right? It was kind of on the edge. It was like, hey, it's just the API. No, nothing for users to do. Turns out there's something for users to do. You do have to update in order to switch. It's like it seems like without the update, like you're hitting the like they will take down the API,
Right.
but like to use the new API, you have to use the new
Wow.
client software. So because there's this client component, we needed to make sure that people are actually using the client.
Oh, that's
the
scary
client.
cool. That is scary cool.
So that's honestly the only reason why it's on there, is because there was something for someone to do, right? And that is update the client.
Wow, that is super neat. And you've had a bunch more too. And you mentioned, thank you for the name drop for this review. You've had the VMware Center one and the Adobe Commerce, and there's always a Magento bug as well for it's out there too. So that is awesome.
Yeah, we had 2 today.
Anyone else have anything they want to ask Todd before we close up this slightly longer show than usual?
We're so over time, huh?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Can you come back? This was awesome.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
We'll see.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I want to personally, I think we all want to thank CISA for loaning us Todd for a while. Hopefully we all behave really well. And for his and their hard work that on the vital resource that is Kev. Please support Kev. Please do what Todd asked, and make sure you have CVs in your entries vendors, and the rest of the folks out there, use the resources you have available to let them know what's going on. If there's something being exploited, see something, say something. This is great. And Todd, thank you for being on as well.
Thank you so much. I love the show. I watch it every week.
Wow. And thanks for all my co-hosts putting up with my insanity and all the show, and for having great questions for Todd and everything else. And as we wrap up this episode of Grey Nice Stormwatch, let's take a moment to appreciate the positive developments in the cybersecurity world. We see major breakthroughs in dismantling, well, not today, but that's what the AI thought we were going to talk about this. Dismantling criminal networks, arrests in high-profile cases, and international cooperation, and tackling cyber threats. These stories remind us that while challenges persist, dedicated professionals are working tirelessly, like CISA, to make our digital world safer. Don't forget to check out our blog for the ongoing Grey Noise Election Security Series. Your feedback helps us shape our content, and drop us a review or join the conversation on social media. Stay vigilant, keep your systems updated, and remember, in cybersecurity, knowledge is power. This was the lamest one that AI has generated for us a long time, guys. Sorry.
It actually sounds good, dare I say?
Yeah, I know. I need to work on. As we were discussing earlier, I think AI has said that it doesn't want to be silly anymore, or whatever. It wants to be respected. We'll be back next week with more insights. Until then, stay safe in cyberspace. Take care, everybody.
Late.